when my son was born 7.5 years ago, it blew a hole open in my soul and realized that there was a lot that I had buried and been really covering up with excessive strength training. My strength training, your strengths can be weaknesses sometimes. And
Mm.
I developed a lot of armor,
Mm.
right? We use like a Reichian term,
Sure.
So I just became really big and rigid in my body and in the way that I viewed the world. I'm starting to get numb and feel like a real lack of purpose.
Right.
Instantly burst into tears.
Welcome to the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. I am your host, Alex Green, and I'm on a mission to bring the power of embodiment to people all around the world. In this podcast, we explore how embodiment practices, trauma healing, and knowledge about the human nervous system can help us find our ground, discover new sources of meaning, and create connection in an ever-changing world. The deepest change is embodied change.
All right. Well, I'm excited to be sitting down this afternoon with Andrew Ragan, and I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, as always. Andrew is in Kirkland, Washington, just east of Seattle. And we're going to be talking about strength training and neurogenic tremoring, TRE, and breath work and some related modalities. And Andrew is the founder and proprietor of a business called Soul-Centered Strength, which is a diverse platform. I'll let Andrew share exactly what it is, but a coaching practice that involves strength training and what he calls working in and working out. And the working out is strength training and conditioning, and the working in are things like TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises, and conscious connected breath work, yoga, and probably a few other things as well. Andrew and I connected several years back through the TRE certification process. He went through the program with myself and Ellen, and I've just been kind of following, Andrew, your work over the last few years through social media, and seeing that you're definitely doing, in my view, a wonderful integration of embodied practices from yoga to strength work to nervous system-based things. And so the focus of our conversation today is just, I want to just kind of pick Andrew's thoughts about how he sees these modalities supporting one another, who are the kinds of clients that he works with, what's drawing people to both work in and work out. And we'll probably talk about some other things as well, that maybe where the somatic field might be headed and things like that. So that's just a quick preview of what I hope we can cover today. But Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Alex. Yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I wonder, maybe you could just start by just briefly introducing your business, Soul-Centered Strength. And I love the name. So I even like hearing the name, but then also kind of what is included in your work, I think would be a wonderful starting point.
Thanks, man. I rebranded the business about 3-4 years ago as I'm going through my own spiritual personal transformation, and been a personal trainer for 15 years. I got my degree in psychology and played football, ran track at Linfield College down in McMinnville, Oregon.
Yep.
Graduated in 2008. And I became a personal trainer while I figured out what I wanted to do after I graduated. I had no idea. All I knew was that I didn't want to be seated all day. This is too much of a mover.
Right.
And personal training just continued to unfold. And I was into it, just being a gym rat growing up, playing sports, just loved being in the gym.
Right.
When my son was born 7.5 years ago, it blew a hole open in my soul and realized that there was a lot that I had buried and been really covering up with excessive strength training. My strength training, your strengths can be weaknesses sometimes. And I developed a lot of armor, right? We use like a Reichian term,
Sure.
So I just became really big and rigid in my body and in the way that I viewed the world.
Okay.
I'm starting to get numb and feel like a real lack of purpose.
Right.
You know, instantly burst into tears as soon as my son was born. Simultaneously, like blew out my back squatting for the 15th time, so I couldn't hold like my child, despite being this big power lifter that I had been, focusing on getting big and strong for so long.
Right.
When I started my yoga practice, I had a buddy who owned a studio, and that became more of like my regular go-to form of movement practice. And for the first year or so, I would just be in down dog, just crying as I just started feeling and releasing a lot of this, held tension in my body.
Yeah.
Then I started to like come alive again. I had like a definite dark night of the soul experience, a couple of years. But as I started to regain capacity to feel, it's like whole joy started permeating my body again.
Yeah.
So I felt obligated to deepen my yoga practice, and became a 500-hour certified teacher through a local teacher in Seattle. Her name is Greta Hill, and she's wonderful. And she comes from like the Anusara Rasa Sienna Sherman lineage for anyone who's a yoga practitioner. But so much of it's about embodiment, and, spiritual liberation and worldly fulfillment, getting the both currents moving through the body from both upward and downward.
Yeah.
And as you get to know yourself and you see what excites you or what interests you. And so I was really captivated by this authentic soul expression that was starting to come out of me for what felt like the first time in my life as the 33, 34-year-old man with a young son. And so through yoga, through strength training, I got introduced to trauma release exercise because I have had so much pelvic low back pain for so long from a few injuries I happened to me when I was little.
Yeah.
And from TRE, I get into plant medicine. From plant medicine, I get into conscious connected breath work, and the path continues to unfold. So my offering now is I get them in on the strength training, but really what I'm trying to do is have them do MDMA therapy or something like that, right? Just get really reconnected with themselves. So that's not something I currently offer. That's what my partner does, but
right.
Really just trying to help people connect to themselves through movement, through breath, or just through, connection and relationship.
Interesting. So you're kind of, I'm here. I mean, you might be a little bit joking with your, you hook them with the strength training, but you've got another agenda for them. But but I hear some truth in it too. In a way, I'm guessing, based on your own personal experience, where when you recognized that your athletics and strength training was probably a lot of positives to it, but it didn't mean that there wasn't a whole lot of other work to be done, psycho-emotional, other kind of embodiment work. It sounds like, in a way, you're part of your target audience or purpose may be helping others kind of move along that path as well. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is expansion, right? It's connection and expansion from that place of self-connection.
Right.
I find strength training is such a wonderful way to practice boundaries, overcoming resistance, doing hard things, right? Like toughening up.
Yeah.
Showing up for yourself. It's like just a great way to practice self-love, like challenging yourself and like doing hard shit. No one wants to wake up early and lift heavy weights, and it's hard. And then yoga, TRE, breath work, I mean, they can be very confrontational, but can also be very gentle ways of unfolding and getting to know yourself too. So it's nice being able to have some kick you in the ass stuff, and also some real nourishing ways of supporting people to love themselves again.
Yeah, well said. I'm just gonna resonate for a moment, kind of hearing your story. I don't, I know you a little bit through our conversations and work through TRE, but I hadn't heard that sort of exact version of your story and the, kind of breaking through with your son, the birth of your son and all of that. Yeah. But hearing your version, I'm a little bit reminded of my own version, which is different. It wasn't the strength training and things that were me, but I was into a very into martial arts and kind of the hardness of that, and sort of, intensive meditation. This was in my early 20s, mid 20s, doing all of that. And for me, it wasn't yoga, but it was when I first got body work. It was kind of Rolfing style body work. And I went through because I had a hip issue and a lower back thing. And so I went through the 10 series of structural integration body work. And that was my version of like, all this. I didn't realize how much emotion I wasn't feeling in myself, or capacity for joy I had just sort of tamped down. And I used to tell people that after I kind of discovered body work and then everything that came after that, like when I was in my 30s, I would tell people, I feel way more youthful now in my mid 30s than when I was in my 20s. I was so serious about everything. And so for me, it was like this expanding of my personality into different parts of who I am. But anyway, hearing your version, just kind of reminded me, oh yeah, I know a little bit of what that journey can be like.
Yeah, very young energy, and then you get some healthy in life, and it's expansive.
Yeah,
like, blow you open. They're really good. Like, I had a similar experience, not to the extent not to compare at all, but I did the whole Hellerwork series.
Yeah.
This was around the same time that my son was born, and then I was just trying all the things, and I did a full meal deal, and it was the cranial session, or I don't know if what's that in relationship between Rolfing and Hellerwork, but I never.
Yeah, they're kind. I don't know exactly. I don't know as much about Hellerwork as I know about other things, but I know there's a connection. Yeah.
And it was the session, man, where I got the pinky up the nose.
Yeah.
Eyeball. And the dude, wonderful man, such a gentle guy. He, as soon as like this, dude, it was like, I cried, the ocean.
Yeah.
It was, I realized in that moment though too, he was just kind of sitting next to me, just like supporting, like, I don't have this.
Yep.
Like, I don't have like a male support person to like fucking resolve to. Love my dad, but that's not our relationship.
Right.
It's like that healing component of the experience was crazy.
Really powerful.
Crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so, tell us maybe a little bit, so it sounds like, you've, like you said, you rebranded as your practice evolved to be beyond strength training, but maybe just describe a little bit, just who are your clients? I mean, I'm sure all ages, all genders, who works with you? Is it a lot of one-on-one work? Is it group work? I know you do some teamwork, and I want to talk about your experience with the police force a little bit later in the conversation. So I know you do that stuff too, but maybe just describe your one-on-one and small group work just a little bit.
Cool. Yeah. So in terms of a psycho demographic, we're talking people who are more open-minded.
Yes.
I'm offering a little bit more of a comprehensive or different approach to strength training, and we're still nuts and bolts. We're coming in the gym and we're lifting weights. So I teach studio yoga once or twice a week. I'm in a local yoga studio, and there's a lot of people who practice yoga who don't have a relationship to strength training, and so they appreciate that I have a foot in both fields. I can speak the language, and I just understand where we're coming from. I live in Kirkland, man, so there's tech everywhere. So there's a lot of like highly educated people in this Seattle, Kirkland, Bellevue area. And not the stereotype, oftentimes with a lot of like high intelligence, that there tends to be a lack of practice being in the body. So people can be so good up here. And I love that. And a lot of the practice to me is like teaching them to slow down, like similar in a therapy practice, or teaching them a somatic experiencing session. Like, we can't change what we can't feel. it's the same with body awareness and movement. So there's, like the Navy SEALism, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Oftentimes teaching people to slow down, feel, engage, work with it, and now we can start getting stronger in that movement pattern. So, gone through like the evolution of. I used to have a strength training gym pre-pandemic that was catered more towards middle school, high school, collegiate athletes.
Okay.
Very fun practice. Worked with a lot of local teams and kids, and just identifying as an athlete, that's who I wanted to work with. This is primarily in my 20s.
Yep.
And, definitely got a big helping hand from the universe. I had just transitioned out of my gym space, literally the month before the pandemic hit and everything had to get locked down.
Yeah.
So I was able to navigate that kind of sketchy time. And I just opened up shop in my garage studio in my home, like a 3-car garage, and I wasn't planning on using that as the space.
Right.
And I've been just training people out of my studio garage gym for 3.5 years now. And it's continuing to evolve and it's growing. And, right now the practice is consisting mostly of people who are curious about trying breath work or wanting to see what it's like to do like a plunge in a sauna, either pre or post training session, because I have those amenities.
Set up. Yeah.
Or people who are interested in expanding the yoga practice by getting more structurally sound in different parts of their bodies. So,
right.
Some people are a little rigid and I got to get them softer, and other people are too loosey-goosey and
got to get them let's get some structure or some strength in there.
With that also comes the emotional, spiritual, physical qualities of how people, physically present themselves.
Sure.
Or if you've got the architecture of a lot of tension and rigidity, we need some TRE. So I'll help people okay, we're going to do our strength training, but at the end of the session, I need 10 minutes of this, or on your off days, I need 15 minutes of that. So just able to, like you said, or the term that I use, working out and working in, I got to be able to have inputs that are going to strengthen the container and then inputs that are going to allow, relaxation and stretch.
Yeah.
So I just want the yang and the yin in creating balance, man. So I'm trying to help people be balanced.
That's awesome. So
it was alignment there for us.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly the kind of strength coach that, I like strength training, and I do it sometimes, then I'll go on a phase doing something else. And so I've not been the most consistent strength trainer, but you'd be exactly the kind of strength trainer that I would coach, that I would want at this phase of my journey.
Yeah, man. I work with yoga teachers. I work with acupuncturists. I work with body workers. I work with people in similar spaces as you and I.
Yeah.
Have an appreciation for similar things.
Yeah, the multidimensionality. It's not we use our bodies in multiple ways for multiple purposes. Yeah.
So it ends up being a cool community, because I got the deaf doula, training with the craniosacral therapist, training with the business exec. There's just fun environment.
Oh, super cool. Yeah, well, so let's talk a little bit, if you're okay with it. I'm especially curious about. I'm curious about both how TRE, kind of what you've learned, because you've been practicing now for several years. So that's one area I definitely want to kind of hear your thoughts and impressions, and also kind of how that dovetails with strength training. I've got a bunch of questions on the TRE front. And similarly, I've done several shows now on breath work. It's something that I've practiced. I've done more breathing practice myself. I've interviewed other folks, and so I'm curious to hear sort of I have a similar set of questions about the conscious connected breathing. Maybe let's start with TRE, if that's okay. Can I just kind of quiz you on what you've been? Can I just fire off a bunch of questions? Are you cool with that? Yeah. So, I guess first question would be, because, with my own clients, I have a lot of TRE clients, and I'm definitely not doing any, I don't have much input on their fitness, although people ask that question quite a bit. And we just finished up a project with the, I was telling you about when we met the other week, with the FDNY firefighters who are all in the fitness unit. So they are the fitness instructors for FDNY, and they learned TRE to start to bring in with their probationary officers. Super cool. But so a question on my own mind has been, because I sometimes, I guess, kind of give guidance around this, but I feel like I could learn more, is the intersection of tremoring and strength programming or just fitness programming generally. Right now, and I'm not talking so much from like a psycho-emotional trauma release perspective, but more from a musculoskeletal perspective, or as a component of recovery. You know, if somebody's been doing a lot of high intensity work. So I wonder if we could start there. Do you think that what's the relationship of tremoring as a practice in connection to fitness, strength training in general? Just would love to hear what you've learned or your own thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, strength training, we're learning to engage and bear down squeeze.
Right.
To prevent injury, we need to know how to lock in the pelvis and the core unit to create a lot of stability. I don't have like too much crazy spinal loading or heavy back squats or anything that there's like a risk to reward ratio that, I operate within.
Okay.
Anytime that you're going to be like having to really engage your adductors, your pelvic floor, your glutes, you're going to get, you're going to get sore in these places. And if you're going to be training these muscles all the time, there's going to be residual tension, right, in those spaces. So not from like you're saying, psychosomatic trauma standpoint,
right?
Just in terms of like the actual physical practice,
right?
Found it to be really beneficial for people to do if they're like, after a hike. I've worked with a mountaineering group of women, and that taught all of them TRE. So they'll be camping in the middle of the Cascades and like tremoring, post hike or something. But especially for there's a lot of like pelvic disassociation, just culturally, or whether it's sexual shame or whether it's injury or trauma to the area or just embarrassment, hiding away.
Yep.
Which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
Being an instructor in the practice. So I really feel like it benefits every single person that I've ever worked with. But for people who tend to be high muscular tone and have strong legs, strong glutes, there's going to be a grabbing. So there can be like some pretty high amplitude or frequency experiences for people when doing it. So.
Yeah, if they have more strength, they have more residual muscular tone, they learn how to tremor. Those are the folks who are not always, but we're likely to see some bigger movements. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are a little bit more blocked off from it too initially. So
yeah.
But I found that during the strength training session, we're not doing the full TRE, right, set of exercises, but I know which ones I need to have engaged and which parts of the body need to be, open and which need to be engaged for that process to be experienced. So yeah, I'll do it at the end of the session, oftentimes for people who maybe they're coming in a little, like they're dragging ass a little bit too. Not that I'm here to like push them where they're at and just, encourage them, but sometimes, man, for people who are coming in toasted, like, okay, we're going to do some yin yoga today. We're going to finish it off with some tea. So they have to do that over on this side of the gym while these people are,
doing something else. Yeah. Nice. Well, so that was another question I had, which was, okay, so using your example of the mountaineers, and so, they do a big hike, they're camping, they're kind of discharging, physically, maybe even physiologically as well, maybe stress, who knows? So that's kind of like using tremoring, somewhat soon after the activity. And I'm curious for people, and in a minute I'll explain my question, because I've made a few observations. I've worked with some high level athletes, and I'm going to compare notes with you in a little bit here. But one question I've had, people always ask, well, should I do my tremoring? Okay, I did leg day, or I did, a strength session. Should I do my tremoring right then and there as the cool down from my workout? So maybe, or is this something that I do on my recovery day, or does that depend on the individual? And I'm curious kind of what your experience has been.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed teaching people at the end of a session.
Okay.
It's more often than not that I'm programming it for their recovery days.
Okay.
It'd be more of like a logistical issue versus just in terms of getting all this, the appropriate amount of work in.
Yeah.
I found TRE to be useful like in person during the strength training session. If there's also some additional like overstress, overtaxed energy coming into the space. So
Okay.
I don't know necessarily about what has been optimal from a performance angle.
Yep. Yep.
I work with many different levels of fitness, and so we might not necessarily be seeking peak performance and using TRE. We have a tool for that.
Right.
I'd be curious though, of what have you noticed?
Well, I think what I've noticed is some variability. Meaning, the variability I've noticed is that some people will say, well, the default assumption will be, oh, this would be great, a great way for, instead of foam rolling, or maybe in addition to foam rolling, I'm going to just kind of shake everything out. And some of the athletes I've worked with, it's like, yeah, that feels good. It's a wonderful cool down. I've also worked with people that it's harder for them to access their tremoring immediately post-workout. And that they do better like doing it on an off day simply as a recovery practice. And I have a bit of a theory on that, which is that and it's a little bit true in my own body. When I've done these days I do more cardio, but if I do something that's kind of a high heart rate thing, I can tremor. But there's something about if I was doing something where I was pretty, I don't know, working kind of hard, it's a little harder for me to shift in my brain to like a fully just relaxing and letting go kind of I can do it, but it's not the same as if I just, give myself some time. I do some breathing. I settle into breath first. I do a kind of a nice slow build for my tremoring. I get like a different sort of a more relaxed, a bit more parasympathetic experience if I do it not in combination with my workouts. And so that's sort of something I've been exploring a little bit.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I would imagine just having your heart rate elevated is going to be making it harder to come or drop into a parasympathetic space.
Right.
It's like the ultimate sweet spot of like 20 minutes post-workout, heart rate's dropped, you got the already and don't work.
Yeah, no. Somebody should study this from a peak performance perspective. Maybe the FDNY, the FDNY guys are pretty into like measuring their HRV and all this stuff. So maybe we'll get some good info from that community.
Cool. That'd be fun to see, actually.
Yeah, totally.
Anything that's going to make it more available to a broader audience. So sometimes just having, I know it could be tremor release exercise or trauma release exercise.
Right.
Having the word trauma as part of the package can be like, this is too scary.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
yep. Yeah.
Right? Going to make it more widespread.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's touch briefly, let's pivot to the conscious breath work a little bit, because I'd love to hear what grabbed you about that, when, what you think some of the strengths of that method are. How is that one-on-one facilitation or class work? Maybe just share a little bit about how that fits within your practice, because it seems like one of your main working in modalities.
Yeah. Well, breath is the ultimate connector between conscious and unconscious, right? So it's the way we directly influence our autonomic nervous system. And that's like when speaking from like a nervous system informed space, we're using parasympathetic, sympathetic language. And,
right.
What's so nice about having the TRE education, I'm able to understand what's happening physiologically in the body for the most part.
Yeah.
And then there's the crazy altered states of consciousness, places of expansion people can go to. Yeah. It can be incredibly healing and powerful for people.
Yeah.
That you can't explain. So I just love the how both of those worlds interconnect in the practice. I got introduced to it through Wim Hof in 2015 at like a CrossFit convention.
Okay.
Yep. So more from like a performative, not I'm trying to perform, but like how can this improve our performance?
Sure. Yep.
And as I thought it was cool. And didn't really get it though.
Yeah.
And, through pranayama practices and learning to manipulate the breath and through yoga, I started just being in community more where people were stepping into or trying conscious connected breath work. I really didn't have it something that grabbed a hold of me though until more recently, 2021 or early 2021. I went down to Costa Rica to go to a place called Rhythmia, and it's like a ayahuasca retreat center.
Got it.
And I had just as much of a profound experience, if not more, on the breath work than the actual like plant medicine. Just for that particular reason, I don't know why, but and I had already like been drawn to states of expansion, but also feeling like I wanted to help people connect to their soul's purpose, and I felt like it was such a beautiful gateway and opportunity for me to introduce this to my community. I kind of walked the world of like, I live in the burbs. I'm surrounded by, tech community, pretty traditional. And, being into these altered states of consciousness places.
Yeah. You're a tech hippie. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something like that. I don't personally define myself as a tech hippie, but maybe a lot of,
I'm gonna define you as a tech hippie. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I say more like what would be the appropriate term here? Like like a spiritual term here.
Okay, that's a good term. Yeah,
Going from the grow world.
Yeah,
right. I'm been exploring the spirituality space now for more than 8 years now.
Yeah.
So I introduce a lot of people to these practices and normally would step into these spaces. I mean, it's also lent itself to me being able to do work with the local police departments with TRE and breathwork too.
Yeah.
Just, it's easy for people I can speak their language more often than not. Or depending on the audience I'm in front of. But there's a lot of like strong police officers, right? They'll see me and maybe they'll be more open to receiving information from me just because I look like them more than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's been a practice, man, that I feel excited about. And it's like, I don't have my background or master's degree in therapy or I'm not a social worker. So there are some barriers to entry for me being able to offer certain things.
Yeah.
Work though is something that's continuing to grow. And because there are less barriers, it's easier for people to get into trouble. So I went and didn't know who to get breathwork certified through. I got really lucky when I decided to study with my yoga teacher. That was just more a handout. I had no idea the difference between this type of yoga and this type.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be like the best teacher in the Seattle area. I got lucky.
Yep.
So I had to do some research and find out which breathwork practice or offering was going to be best for me. And I signed up with a team called Integrative Breathwork, where there's one woman, Ray Rydell. She lives in Boulder. She's a Hakomi chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
Is polyvagal informed and knows the science and somatics of what's happening with breathwork. And she paired up with a woman in Glastonbury, England, who was more of like the medicine wheel, more spiritual based lineage. So it was a very integrated experience in terms of we got to have more of the spiritual understandings and underpinnings of what this practice can offer, and then also what's happening from like a nervous system informed space. So like got both right and left hemispheres in my brain. Super excited. And that was like an 8-month amount of school where it was 3 hours, similar to the TRE, how we're doing it online. And then we'd had a big breath camp where for a week we did like 25 breathwork sessions around Glastonbury, England.
Yep.
And so for everyone in the Boulder community, Ray Rydell's awesome.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll see if I can get her on the podcast. Maybe.
Yeah, she's killer. She's super cool. Walks the walk. Lovely presence. Super smart. Yeah. She's really involved with the Oxygen Advantage community as well for people who are with Property Jones work and this, using the nose as the primary tool to receive and exhale.
Yeah.
So it was really oxygen advantage forms too, which was cool because conscious connected breath work, it's expansive, but you're breathing in and out through the mouth just to get a more voluminous breath experience. So we're doing those things, but we're also learning the benefit of nasal breath and different tools that we can use to enhance VO2. And
Right.
so it was really fun. That was 3 years ago. They'd offer an additional round to be a mentor for the next group that came through.
Yep.
And since then, I offer it individually. I offer it in small groups. I teach it seasonally. Want to do like a seasonal themed breathwork practice at the local yoga studio. I've done bigger breath experiences at there's a cathedral in Seattle called St. Mark's. And it's one beautiful, beautiful space. So you get 100, 150 people in there breathing, and it can be really, really cool. You got the organist jamming on the organ.
Nice. Yeah.
So right now it's the backbone of my offering is my strength training practice.
Right.
And for everyone that trains with me, I lead a small group practice that they're all invited to monthly, as well as just part of their membership for training. So I want everyone to do all the things.
I see.
I want people to come to the yoga class. But I have people just get to know themselves through their body.
For you regular listeners to the podcast, you know that about half of these episodes focus on TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises. And I wanted to make sure that you know about the Redbeard TRE certification program, our educational platform to certify others. And we have both an online version of that I teach, as well as an in-person version of the training that my colleague Ellen McKenzie teaches in Madison, Wisconsin. My next online certification training is beginning August 3rd and 4th, 2024. That's the first of 3 modules. And the way the certification program works is it's about a 10 to 12 month program divided into 3 phases of learning, each with a weekend connected to it, and then some one-on-one work with me and people on my team to support your learning journey. TRE has been a life-changing modality for myself. It's open to people with any background. I wanted to make sure you know about the program. You can find more information at redbeardtre.com. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Well, you mentioned, it sounds like your partner does MDMA therapy. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. She went to Naropa in Boulder.
Yep.
Being a transpersonal therapist. She's somatically educated too. She went through the MAPS training a couple of years ago. She was in the inaugural MAPS training program through Naropa.
Yep.
So, she has her therapy practice, but she's also doing MDMA and psilocybin guided journey.
Facilitated work. Do you partner her with her in any way in terms of shared clients or programs? I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's always trying to get everyone to move their bodies. It's some of the best mental health practices right there, is just getting out of your head and into your body. So
yeah,
you've referred me a few clients. I've referred her several of my people too. And we lead breathwork workshops together at yoga spaces or for different local companies around the area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stepping into that space more. I'm educating myself on where how to just make sure I know how to hold that container in a safe and respectful way, both to the medicine, the person, myself, make sure there's no transference or counter transference. I'm just learning how to do all those things. So that is something that I hope to do more of, particularly in the plant medicine space. I find that really beautiful, like an honor to be able to help someone unfold into themselves or prepare. So I started my Hakomi training therapy just last weekend.
Are you studying Hakomi? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Well, I just started it, so it's gonna take a few years.
Yeah, that's great. No, Hakomi is a wonderful body of work. What's the duration? Is it it's a couple years?
Yeah, it was 3 levels. So I'm just starting level 1. And level 1 is pretty basic. It's for, at least the way that the Seattle Hakomi School does it. I'm not sure if it's the same everywhere, but there's 4 like weekend workshops spread throughout the year.
Yeah.
And level 2 is like a, in attendance at the space that they decide to host it in.
Yeah.
Every 3 or 4 nights. Level 3 is getting a lot of practice hours, and so it's going to take a while. But I mean, I'm going to be 3 years older anyways.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Well, for somebody who doesn't know what Hakomi is, can you give a little explanation? What's the body of work?
Yeah, I'm brand new to it, so but it's a way to practice embodying mindfulness, like creating, like, what are the exercises that you can do to create like loving awareness for self, and therefore hold it for the other, and inviting them into their own embodiment or their embodied mindful space, and so they can access their truth. The answers are all within, right? So
Yeah.
learning to occupy self from that mindful, loving, compassionate space. How do you do that? What are the practices to get there?
Yeah.
How do you offer that to the person you're holding space with? So for underground, like, medicine community people, it's like, it's a good thing to have in your tool belt. It's like necessary.
Yeah.
Also, internal family systems informed as well. So that's part of the training.
Oh, good. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it kind of checks off a couple of the boxes for me to be able to step into the plant medicine space.
Yeah, it sounds like that's an area of interest, is to do more facilitation in those settings.
Yeah. Nice to be able to get people in on, like, okay, I'm stepping into the space of getting to know myself through movement.
Yeah.
And then eventually, maybe down the line, be able to be in a space where they feel safe enough and called to explore themselves, with plant facilitation or breath work or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because there's no end to the depth of getting to know yourself. So you can definitely go down like an ayahuasca hole and do too much ayahuasca or weed or whatever it is. It's not, will always be high all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have something in your tool belt to help people get to know themselves. I come from a land of like suppression, disassociation, hiding, avoidance.
Yeah.
Lack of self-awareness and how my energy would, interrupt someone else's day. So just the more I get to know myself, man, the better I get to love myself, because I know how to be like an asshole towards myself. But also just like as a practical life skill, if I can do that, whether the Hakomi training is necessary for me to do the plant medicine work, but just as like a skill set for me to develop for myself anyways.
Yeah.
This should be part of like the
human. Yeah. That's how I felt. That's how I often describe the somatic experiencing training. I think, there's a little bit, I don't know all there's Hakomi and there's some roots with Pat Ogden and Ron Kurtz and Peter Levine. All those people were hanging out. But for me, SC training was like that. So it was 3 years, and I began not even thinking I would. I wasn't at all thinking, oh, I'm doing this, I want to become a practitioner or whatever. In the beginning, I was just curious because I had read about it. And in reading Peter Levine's books, I was like, okay, well, this all sounds really like awesome, but I don't really understand how it works. And there weren't any practitioners in Madison at that time where I lived. And so the easiest thing for me to do was just to sign up for a Module 1 training. But I ended up being very hooked from that first experience, and hooked enough to go through the whole program ultimately. And now it's one of my core modalities. But I often say that, which is that, sure, to me, I love using it professionally, but boy, it was like, it was a study in, it was a learning about myself, not in the abstract, but in a very detailed, embodied, half science through a polyvagal lens and half just sort of experience, psycho-emotional. But it's like, and I think at this point, at one point I was counting, but I think I've not convinced, but people have consulted with me, hey, should I do this somatic experiencing training? Probably 20 or 30 times now, where I probably know 20 or 30 people who have ended up going through the SE training. And I don't know anybody who hasn't had the same experience where at the end of it, they were like, wow, I didn't know I needed to know all of that, but now I do. And it's great to use it with others, but I know so much more about myself. And I think that can be true for, it's not just SC, but I'm guessing Hakomi is going to be like that for you, or somebody who did a deep dive for the breath work or whatnot. But that's something what I like about this field in general, the field of somatics, is almost all of us, we are doing it for deeply personal reasons, and we have the love of sharing our discoveries with others. But to me, that's super exciting to hear you're going down that road.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that we offer what we need.
Yeah.
So, this has really helped me, so therefore I want to share with my community. And it's funny, like my like some of the people that are the closest to me are the ones who are most resistant. I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your world as well, but I'm just continuing to engage the curious part of myself, and we'll see where this leads. So,
right.
I also know I can be I haven't done like it's been a couple of years since I have like signed up for a new offering. I can definitely get on the hamster wheel of like, okay, well, this now, and then now this, and now this. So it's nice to take a couple of year break and survey the landscape. Itself and see what felt right. So I looked at SC for a long time because I have a good friend who just completed the 3-year training. Yep. A bunch of workshops together, teaching TRE and yoga and breath work to different communities, and even more with the SC curriculum.
Yep.
A couple sessions with her, and it's super cool. Mm-hmm. It's really similar to Hakomi. It's like different languaging.
Yeah.
Talking like titration and pendulation and using some specific terms.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Interesting. I was noticing in the Hakomi practice earlier this weekend, like some of the practices of learning to shift into different spaces was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, there's a lot of overlap there. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I wonder, I want to save time to hear a little bit about the work you have done with the police. Maybe it's ongoing. You may be doing other similar sort of more organizational level kind of work. Can you share a bit about that? Let's just start with the police project. Tell us what got included, how'd it go? Yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, I've worked with the 2 different police departments, both local, just the Bellevue Police Department and the Kirkland Police Department. So I worked with like several of their like smaller units. I worked with their SWAT team. I worked with their I believe it's their honor guard team, people who have to learn how to be really reserved and stoic. Moving through like, hero processions and, where you got to stay strong during some experiences. And then also one other team that was more responsible for like holding space for the other officers. So I worked with the chaplain of the department. That was like a quick 30-minute PowerPoint presentation on like, here's your nervous system, here's your ANS, here's how the fight or flight response works in the body. Yeah. So I approached it from a more of like a left brain standpoint. Yeah. And then we got to do the TRE practice together. It was really cool. Everyone was super receptive and open to it. And that was throughout like the 3 teams that I worked with. The Bellevue Police Department has about 30 or 40 officers. And their wellness coordinator is trying to get more of this work accessible to their department. And he sees the benefit. And he's someone who's come to my breathwork workshops and just hit it off.
Yeah.
He just happens to be the guy who's responsible for creating the wellness curriculum for this entire department. So
I see. Yeah, I was going to ask did you kind of pitch this to did you kind of bring this to them, or was it through one of your, through one of the connections? Sounds like maybe it was this wellness coordinator.
he's a friend of a friend, like, hey,
Yeah.
this guy, and I think he'd be into what you're offering.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, just my friend was a nurse, and she knew the guy's wife, who was also a nurse, and one of those.
Yeah.
This was also like just coming out of, this is 2022 when this relationship began. So coming out of the pandemic, and people are really revved up and stressed and tense. So it was, well received.
Yeah. Are you doing ongoing work with either of these departments, or are there sort of next, or did they sort of develop any in-house continuity for any of this, or?
So I created this package called like the nervous system regulation toolkit. And it was a package designed for people to do at the end of their shift, or officers to do at the end of their shift. They had like a 20-minute window where they were either going to exercise, meditate, yoga nidra, breath work, TRE. So just kind of like, here are the options, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can pick and choose and what you want to do. So that has been something that I've created for the department that they asked me to create. And they're still in the process of rolling that out. There's some red tape with things like this. So I'm excited to see what the results are.
Cool.
They put a lot of energy into it. I feel really good about it. So it was fun creating that too. So now I have this little thing that I can give to all my clients as well to have in their toolkit if they need support.
Yeah, cool. Have you worked with other teams, like corporate teams or other kinds of organizations?
Yeah. Well, I've worked with another police department, Kirkland Police Department, and I had over 100 police officers doing conscious connected breath work. And that was an experience.
I bet. Yeah.
There was a lot of energy in the room, but also like most of them were aware that if they went a little further, they would have, popped. Right? There would have been big catharsis potentially. There's a lot of protective energy.
Sure.
You could see people holding back, and that was to be expected and okay, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't my intention to blow them out of the water, just get them introduced to the practice.
Yeah.
But it was a similar deal where I had the PowerPoint presentation, and then, definitely get some eye rolls. And some people who are like, you mentioned the word meditation, and they're like, oh no, so
yeah.
There were people who were a little bit less enthused about exploring a practice like that.
Yeah.
But all it takes, man, is like a few people really going for it, and it kind of allows the whole energy of a room.
Yeah, to go. Well, that's been our experience, for the last 12 months. I was telling you, we've been working with the FDNY guys and some women, mostly men, but some women have gotten certified too. I think it's kind of exactly as you said. There was one sort of kind of leader of the charge. So Lieutenant Adrian Caban, he has a big role in the fitness unit, and he's a massage therapist. And I don't know when he trained in TRE, maybe 5-6 years ago or something. And he'd been sort of integrated. One of his roles is sort of injury recovery and doing body work on the people that they're training and the officers and all of that. And so it was his inspiration. So he reached out initially to Dr. Berselli and whatever, and so and started a program to get about 5 or 6 people certified within that unit, and then a few related units as well. But that's been my experience working with them too. Is sure there's some skepticism, but mostly it's these guys who are kind of bringing in the others, and mostly what I've been impressed with is how, there's some jokes and there's some, we're shaking and all of this, but mostly people are super open to it. And these are some tough guys, in New York City, and this is probably not their everyday activity, but they're loving it. They're working with big groups. The main officers who are now certified in it. Part of what I liked supervising them was watching their videos. I really liked how they explained it, like the why of this, and they all had sort of a different angle on building resilience, or coming home at the end of your shift and it's 3 a.m. and you're not going to be able to go to sleep, but this helps you settle in. But by and large, I've been struck by how kind of, in a way, hungry they have been for something like this. And it's given me to me, it was a bit eye-opening, and it makes me think that nervous system modalities in general, I'm hoping we're on, that over a 10, 20-year time, I'm hoping we're at a phase where we're going to see more of this getting into police departments, military, first responders, all kind of lots of segments of society could really benefit from this. But what they'd said, one comment that one of the officers shared was that, let's see, 20 years ago, nobody ever, like mental health wasn't even talked about. And they really didn't have a lot of support, and they had a lot of burnout and a lot of, but then over the last 2 decades, there's been a huge, within the department, huge renaissance, and mental health is like totally normalized. They talk about it all the time. They have access to people. It's become completely accepted within their framework. But what a lot of the firefighters, men and women, share, what they've shared as they've done TRE, is that they've said, yeah, but there's something a little bit limited about it. Like here, we have access to therapists, and we're talking, and, these are good listeners and they're empathetic, but they haven't really done what we do. So there's that disconnect. There's a few in-house trained people, but not very many, where they were a firefighter and now they're a therapist. But they said what they're really loving about the tremoring based approach is they can do it in community. They can do it. Sometimes they're doing it, or some of these guys have facilitated one another, like after something. Some people have died, or they're carrying. There's charge, or there's grief, or there's trauma. And so, they'll facilitate for each other, and they don't have to talk about exactly what happened, but they can process. And so they're saying that they're as they look kind of like the evolution of mental health, or a different way of supporting them, what these firemen are basically saying is, hey, this has a lot of potential for supporting our needs in a way that will be really useful for us.
You sound really proud about the work that you're really proud about the work that you've done with them. I mean, such a cool opportunity to help these people. And you can imagine like how that spans out from, however many firehouses, hopefully throughout, the greater 5 boroughs. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the hope, is that we've trained them in a way, we're hoping to empower them to do exactly that, bring it to other departments and fire stations, and so far they seem pretty motivated to do that.
Initiation, it's like a regulation initiation. Like
right.
The world needs more regulation.
No doubt about it. Yeah. Well, I know we have to be respectful of your son's baseball game, so we maybe just have a couple minutes. Is there anything in terms of like a closing thoughts, or a theme we haven't hit yet, or what are we missing in this conversation?
I don't know if we're missing anything, man. It's just been nice getting to know more about your story too, and how you came into the work. And or whoever does listen to this, if they're curious about learning more, my details are in the link.
Yep.
Not the link, but in the description, I'd imagine.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll put all the info in the show notes down below. Yep.
And really, I love the creativity that comes at like the disciplines interweave. So how did rep work inform TRE, and how does it influence strength training, and how does that influence yoga, or how does that influence connection to self and others. So there's so many different ways and tools to ultimately help people, heal themselves, and from those healed places and get the pay it forward effect, moving out into the world, man. So I know we have different yet similar approaches, but it sounds like ultimately the goal is one and the same, and it's healing and expansion for self and others. So I appreciate the time, man, and I hope more people get to experience it, whether it's strength training or through yodeling or dance or whatever it is. It's like finding the thing that helps you feel safe enough to access the stuff that's been buried away. Like the metaphor of you can either walk along the river or jump off the waterfall. And I find like meditation and TRE to be more similar to walking along the river, very gentle, but you're tap into the flow. Versus like, you're going to go do 5 cups of ayahuasca and jump off the fucking waterfall. So there's different ways to approach getting to know self.
Yeah.
And it's just about figuring out what is the appropriate dosage for you.
Yeah. What do you need at this time at your, totally agree. Well, Andrew, similarly, it's been very rich kind of hearing what's guided your journey. And I recognize a lot of the same curiosity around just how do things fit with one another, and what's meaningful at the for you personally, and then how to pay that forward and to bring it into community around you. So very inspiring to hear your particular expression of all of this. Super cool to hear about it.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, it's fun too. It's cool to prepare, and it's also just mind-bogglingly wild. With so much cool shit.
Well, you've met your criteria. What did you say? You graduated from college, and then you knew you didn't want to sit at a desk all day. So you have found a way, both through movement, but also a different kind of movement, a psycho-emotional movement to keep your days exciting, I think.
Yeah. There's always something to dive into, man. So I'm pretty full. Yeah, like it.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew. Thanks for this time.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. To learn more, visit us at redbeardsomatictherapy.com or send me an email at alex@redbeardsomatictherapy.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, help spread the word by subscribing and sharing with others. Hope to see you next time.